Hello, my dear children and parents. Welcome to Indus Valley Public School RAT e-learning classes. Class 9th, where we will do lesson number 5 from Moments, and the name of the lesson is The Happy Prince, written by Oscar Wilde. Oscar Wilde was an Anglo-Irish playwright, novelist, poet, and critic. He is regarded as one of the greatest playwrights of the Victorian era. In his time, he wrote 9 plays, 1 novel, and numerous poems, short stories, and essays. He was born on 16th October 1854 in Ireland, and he took his last breath in Paris. Children, the lesson, The Happy Prince, written by Oscar Wilde, is a story about a statue, the Happy Prince, covered with gold and many fine jewels. It sits overlooking the city. One day, a swallow bird seeks shelter under the statue and discovers the prince not happy but sad. The bird becomes friendly with the prince and tries to make him happy by assisting him in his desire to ease the suffering of others. It plucks out the ruby, the sapphire, and other fine jewels from the statue and delivers them to those who are poor and needy. So in this lesson, we will find 2 characters, that is the prince and the swallow. Okay, so now coming towards the lesson explanation. So here is your lesson. The Happy Prince was a beautiful statue. He was covered with gold. He had sapphires for eyes and ruby in his sword. Why did he want to part with all the gold that he had and his precious stones? So this is a story about a happy prince, and he was covered with different kind of jewels, and he want to depart all his jewels, all his things. Why? Okay, so here it is said that a story about the prince. When the prince was alive, he was very happy. After his death, a big statue of his was erected on the pedestal. From there, the statue of prince could see the entire city, and at that time he saw the miseries of the people, the sadness of the people. He saw the poor people, the homeless, their hunger, the starvation. The prince was sad to see all kind of sufferings, sadness of the people. So in this chapter we will study the story of this prince who removed all the precious thing that he was having. He had devoted all the things for the happiness of the people. Now coming towards the lesson. High above the city on a tall column stood the statue of the Happy Prince. He was clad all over with thin leaves of fine gold. For eyes he had 2 bright sapphires, and a large red ruby glowed on his sword hilt. One night there flew over the city a little swallow. His friends had gone away to Egypt 6 weeks before, but he had stayed behind. Then he decided to go to Egypt too. So my dear children, glided means to cover something or have a coating of something. Okay, that is gold shining wala thing. And hilt, that is the sword hilt. This hilt means the handle of a weapon or tool, especially a sword, dart or knife. Okay, so now what happened here in this paragraph, it is told that the statue of the prince stood on a platform from where that statue can look the city. This prince was called a happy prince because when he was alive, he always remained very happy. Upon his death, a big statue of his was erected in the city and in his remembrance. The statue of this prince was covered with a thin layers of gold, and his eyes were made up of sapphire, a gem. And the handle of his sword was having a bright ruby stone. Okay. So now coming. So what happened? One night there flew a bird. The name of the bird means swallow. It was a teeny bird, and he came and took the shelter under the statue. So swallow is a teeny bird. Although it is not a human being, still the writer is referring to it as he and his. So personification is here. Because when anything is compared to the human trait, no, then it becomes personified. So here swallow is being compared with the human, and writer is also making swallow as he. So he says that all the friends of this swallow had flown away to Egypt 6 weeks ago. This bird did not go with them, but later it thought of going to Egypt to his friends. So it was on its way to Egypt. Okay, now this bird is going to Egypt. Coming to the next lines. All day long he flew, and at night time he arrived at the city. Where shall I put up? Put up means where to live for the night. Okay, he said, I hope the town has made preparation. So now this bird was keep flying on its way to Egypt. At night it reached the city of the happy prince. It wanted to stay somewhere for the night. So it think upon where to stay at night. The bird says that hopefully the city has made some arrangements for it to stay. Obviously, the bird does not mean what it is saying. We can say that probably the bird is being humorous. Okay. Then he saw the statue of the tall column. Okay. So now he had seen the statue. Tall column, I will put up there, he cried. It is fine positioned with plenty of fresh air. So he alighted just between the feet of the happy prince. So alighted means descended, means decrease. Now what it is saying that, now when this teeny bird saw this huge statue of the prince, happy prince, so thought of staying there for the night. So the bird thought that it was a good place to spend the night. There was shelter and a lot of fresh air also. So the bird came and stopped near that statue and sat in between the feet of the statue. So here see the gap, and she sat below that feet of the statue, and the statue was Happy Prince. I have a golden bedroom, he said softly to himself as he looked around. So now what happened? So this bird sat between that, and now after seeing that statue is made up of gold, so that bird said that it is a bedroom made up of gold because it was surrounded by gold all around. Okay, coming to the next. Prepared to go to sleep. But just as he was putting his head under his wing, a large drop of water fell on him. What a curious thing, he cried. There is nothing, a single cloud in the sky. The stars are quite clear and bright, and yet it is raining. Then another drop fell. So now when this bird was below that legs of the statue, so what happened? As it was about to sleep, that bird was about to sleep, and it put his head under the wing. Suddenly a large drop of water fell on it. The bird was surprised. Why? Because all of a sudden, what happened? So all of a sudden a drop of water fell on it. It thought that neither was it raining, nor the rainy season was going, nor the cloud is there. Then why it is happening? And here curious means to know something, but here curious is strange. What strange thing happened? The swallow could not believe this because the sky was not cloudy and star was shining, and the drop is falling on him. Okay? And then again another drop of water fell on it. What is the use of a statue if I cannot keep the rain off? He said, I must look for a good chimney pot. And he determined to fly away. So determined means strong desire. to thought to move. Okay. Then she determined what to do. So the swallow thought the statue was useless because it was not able to protect it from the rain. So he thought he should not sleep under the statue. The swallow thought that it was better to take a shelter in a chimney of a house and thought to move away from there because the statue was not able to protect from the rain. But before he had opened his wings, a third drop fell, and he looked up and saw. What did he see? So now what happened? Before the bird flew away, the third drop of water fell on him, and it looked up. And what did he see? Let's find out. The eyes of happy prince was filled with tears, and the tears were running down his golden cheeks. His face was so beautiful in the moonlight that the little swallow was filled with pity. "Who are you?" he said. "I am happy. I am the happy prince." "Why are you weeping then?" asked the swallow. "You have quite drenched me." So now what happened? Here drenched means soaked with water. Means bhig jana. The swallow thought that the statue was the happy prince, but it was crying. The bird asked the statue that why it was crying. It added that it had soaked it with tears. Okay. Now coming to the next. So next is when I was alive and had a human heart, answered the statue. Now statue is telling something. "I did not know what tears were, for I lived in the palace where sorrow is not allowed to enter. My courtiers called me the happy prince, and happy indeed I was. So I lived and so I died. And now that I am dead, they have set up me there so high that I can see the ugliness and all the misery of my city, and though my heart is made of lead, and yet I cannot choose but weep." So misery here means sadness. So now happy prince is saying his story to the swallow. The happy prince said that when he was alive and he had a human heart means the heart which beat, that is alive. So at that time he was not aware that tears were. He did not know what is weeping and what is sorrow, as he was lived in a palace where there was happiness all around. All the people who used to work in his court used to call him happy prince because he used to be happy all the time, and he had not seen sorrow at all. And he said that he lived happily and died in happiness only. So when he had a human heart, he never cried. He was not aware what tears were. Because he had seen happiness only and never faced any sorrow. Now when he was dead, they had put him so high in the form of a statue on a pedestal that he could not see the whole city. He could see the whole city and the ugliness of the city. He could see there were so many people living in misery, lack of food, hunger, money, homeless. Now when the statue heart was made of lead, a metal, although it did not have any feelings, then also when it saw all the sadness, it became sad and wept. Okay. So what is he not solid gold? Said the swallow to himself. He was too polite to make any personal remarks. So what happened? When the happy prince was telling his sad story, the swallow was thinking about something else in his mind. The bird wondered at the statue of the prince was not made of solid gold. It was surprised. It thought that from outside the statue was covered with gold, but as it said that the heart was made of lead and not of gold, it realized that it was hollow and was not made of solid gold. It saw the statue was very sad and was crying. So he did not make any personal remark. It did not comment anything about the statue. because it was giving the value to the statue feeling. So now bird was thinking this statue, it is having some feeling. It is not only the statue. Okay, it is having the human heart. Now next paragraph. Far away, continued the statue in a low musical voice. Far away in the little street there is a poor house. One of the windows is open, and though it can see a woman seated at the table, her face is thin and worn, and she has coarse. Coarse means rough. Okay? Red hand, all pricked by the needle, for she is seamstress. Seamstress means a person, seamstress means a woman who make a living by sewing, means जो lady stitch करती है. Okay. So the statue continued its story. It spoke in a very musical voice that far away there was a house of a poor woman. The window of her house was open, and it could see through the window that she was sitting near the table. Her face was thin and she was tired. Her hands were rough and had become red because they had been pricked by the needles. The woman was a seamstress. Seamstress means a woman who make a living by sewing. She is embroidering flowers on a satin gown for the loveliest of the queen's maid of honor to wear at the next court ball. In a bed in the corner of the room, her little boy is lying ill. He has a fever and is asking his mother to give him oranges. His mother had nothing to give him but river water. So he was crying, "Swallow, swallow, little swallow, will you not bring her the ruby out of my sword hilt? My feet are fastened to this pedestal and I cannot move." So now sword hilt means the handle of the sword. So now what happened? The woman was embroidering flower on a gown of the queen's maid who would walk along with the queen during the court ball. The statue said that the lady who was embroidering the gown had a little child who was not well. He was suffering from fever and was asking his mom to give him oranges. The boy was asking for orange. His mother was very poor. She had no money. She could not give him orange. She was only able to give him river water, and that is why the boy was crying. So the happy prince statue requested the swallow to take out the ruby stone from the handle of its sword and give it to the lady. It added that its feet were fastened, means it's fixed to the platform because of which it could not move. So here fastened means fixed. Now coming to the next part. Pedestal means that platform where the statue is fixed. Okay. Now next. "I am waited for in Egypt," said the swallow. "My friends are flying up and down the Nile and talking to the large lotus flower. Soon they will go to sleep." So swallow replied that it had to go Egypt. Okay. Its friends were waiting for it. The swallow said that its friends were in Egypt. They were flying near the Nile River and taking to the large lotus flower which grew soon. Soon they would go to sleep, and I wanted to reach Egypt at the earliest. The prince asked the swallow to stay with him for one night and be his messenger. "The boy is so thirsty and the mother so sad," he said. So now the statue requested the messenger. The statue requested the swallow to stay with him for a night. He asked him to be his messenger and work on his behalf. He said that the boy is very thirsty and his mother was very sad, so it should go and give the ruby stone to her. "I don't think I like boys," answered the swallow. "I want to go to Egypt." So once again, the swallow opposed his request and said that it did not like boys. So why should it help the boy? Moreover, it had to go to Egypt. But the happy prince looked so sad that the little swallow was sorry. "It is very cold there. He said that he agreed to stay with him for one night and be his messenger. Thank you, little swallow, said the prince. The prince was so sad that Swallow felt sorry. So it is said that the prince was very sad as Swallow rejected his offer. It is said that it was very cold there, but it could stay with him for one night, and the next morning it would do his work. The happy prince thanked him. So now this bird accepted the proposal of the prince and said, okay, fine, I will be staying with you for the night. After listening these words of Swallow, the bird, the prince was very happy. The swallow picked out the great ruby from the prince's sword and flew away with it in his beak over the roof of the town. So now what happened? Finally, the swallow took out the ruby stone from the happy prince's sword, and the bird took the ruby in its beak and flew over the town. He passed by the cathedral tower, where the marble angel was sculptured. He passed by the palace and heard the sound of dancing. So here what happened? As this swallow was flying on its way to the poor woman's house, it passed the cathedral. What do you mean by cathedral? It's a church. Okay? And on the church tower, white color marble angel were sculptured. Then he reached the palace. He crossed the palace and he could hear the sound of dancing from inside the palace. A beautiful girl came out on the balcony with her lover. I hope my dress will be ready in time for the state ball, she said. I have ordered flowers to be embroidered on it, but the seamstresses are so lazy. So when this fellow was crossing over the palace, a girl came out on the balcony along with her lover. She was hoping that the gown which she had given to the seamstress for embroidering would be ready on time. She was taking about the same gown on which the lady was doing embroidering, to whom the bird had to give ruby stone. Coming to the next. He passed over the river and saw the lanterns hanging on the mast of the ship. So here mast means sail of the ship. In the next slide I will show you what is the mast. Okay, just wait. So now what happened? At last he came to the poor woman's house and looked in. So when the swallow flew over the river, ship also came along the way. So lanterns were hanging on their sails, and finally the swallow reached the woman's house. The boy was tossing feverishly on his bed. The tossing means turning here and there. जैसे आप लोग करवटें बदलते हो ना, that way. So the boy was suffering from fever, and for that reason he was not able to sleep. So he was turning left and right on his bed, and his mother was very tired due to work for long and had fallen asleep. He hoped. So now what happened? He hoped and laid the great ruby on the table beside the women's thimble. So what do you mean by thimble? Thimble means a metal or plastic cap with the close-ended want to protect finger and push the needle in. So जो कि आप उंगलियों में स्टिच करता है वो उंगलियों में पहने रहता है. तो the swallow, she entered the room and she dropped the ruby near her thimble. So now next is there. Then he flew gently around the bed, fanning the boy's forehead with his wings. How cool I feel, said the boy. It must be getting better. And he sank into a delicious slumber. So my dear children, sank means down, but here it means the boy went to sleep. And the slumber means sleep. So what happened? After keeping the ruby stone on the table, the swallow went near the boy as his mother was sleeping and no one was there to take care of him. It shook its wing near him, because of which the boy could feel the cool air and felt better. The boy felt that he was getting better and went to sleep. With this, we can make out that swallow was a kind-hearted. So if a question comes, how can you say that swallow was kind-hearted? So you can say that as the boy was asleep and swallow she shook its wings near the boy, and so that the boy could feel better. So this way we can say that this swallow was a kind hearted. कैसे पता चलेगा? क्योंकि जब उस बच्चे की माँ सो गई थी और बच्चा अच्छा फील नहीं कर रहा था, तो स्वैलो ने अपनी विंग से उस बच्चे के ऊपर हवा की, और ताकि वो बच्चा अच्छे से फील कर सके, अच्छा फील कर सके, और वो वहाँ से चली गई. सो वी कैन से दैट स्वैलो इज अ काइंड हार्टेड. Sorry. Now coming to the next. Then the swallow flew back to the happy prince and told him that what he had done. It is a curious, he remarked, but I felt quite warm now, although it is so cold. So now what happened? He's saying that now this bird came near to the statue and narrated whatever he did at that place. That is because you have done a good action, said the prince. And the little swallow began to think and then fell asleep. Thinking always made him sleepy. So what happened? So after this sleeping, thinking everything, after listening to the happy prince, the swallow started thinking. And when he started thinking, he fell asleep. Whenever he thought, he used to feel asleep. This was the quality of the bird. Now, next one. So now see, I was talking about the mast. See, this stick is there. This is the mast. That I want to show you the picture of the mast. So when the ship and the stick is there, that is the mast. Just go through this thing. Okay. Now coming to the next paragraph. When day broke, he flew down to the river and had a bath. Tonight I go to Egypt, said the swallow, and he was in high spirit at the prospect. He visited all the monuments and sat a long time on the top of the church steeple. When the moon rose, he flew back to the happy prince. Have you any commissions for Egypt? He cried. I am just starting. So now what happened? So when everything was the same prospect, what do you mean by prospect? I'll let you know. So prospect means thought of something. And one more word is there, steeple, high tower of the church. So this bird had visited all the monuments and sat a long time on the top of the church steeple. So now when moon was about to come, means when it was night and the moon rose in the sky, the swallow went to the prince and sought permission to leave for Egypt. Now she asked, now she can leave for the Egypt or not. So commission means sought permission. So now what happened? So she already taken the permission. Now what the prince said, let's see. Swallow, swallow, little swallow, said the prince, will you stay with me one night longer? I waited for in Egypt, answered the swallow. Now again the happy prince requested swallow to stay with him for one more night. And swallow replied that he needed to go to the Egypt because his friends were waiting for him. Then what happened? Swallow, swallow, little swallow, said the prince. Far away across the city, I see a young man in a garret. So what do you mean by garret? So garret is a small dark room at the top of the house. जो आपके छत के ऊपर एक कमरा होता है ना, अंधेरा वाला इस तरह का, वो कमरे की बात कर रहे हैं. So what happened? Garret, he is leaning over desk covered with papers, and in the glass by his side there is a bunch of withered violets. What do you mean by violet here? Withered means worn out, and violet a kind of flower. Okay. So now he is saying, here it is told that, so the happy prince is telling the swallow about his second work. He says that far away across the city, I could see in a small dark room at the top of the house, a young man is sitting, and he was sitting on a desk on which the papers were spread all over, and he was trying to work hard. He had a glass lying near with him in which withered flowers were lying. Okay, so he is telling about that person who is in trouble now. His hair is brown and crisp, and his lips are red as a pomegranate. Pomegranate is a fruit, अनार जो होता है. And he has large and dreamy eyes. He is trying to finish a play for the director of the theater. But he is too cold to write anymore. There is no fire in the grate, and hunger has made him faint. So now he is telling about the person, how he is that. So further, Happy Prince gave him a description of the boy, of the person. He said that his hair were brown and crisp, which meant that he had not taken bath for a longer time. His lips were red like a pomegranate, and he had a big dreamy eyes. That means that young fellow was very ambitious and hardworking. He is trying to finish one of the play for the director of the theater, but he's too cold for him. That means, but he did not have strength. Cold means did not have strength to write anymore because he's feeling very cold. The boy had no money. The young person, he did not have no money. He did not have money, so that's why there was no fire in his fireplace, and he was very hungry. Also, due to which he was feeling very weak. "I'll wait with you one night longer," said the swallow, who really had a good heart. He asked if he should take another ruby to the young playwright. The swallow understood what Happy Prince was trying to tell him. He knew that Happy Prince wanted to help this fellow also. So he agreed to stay back for one more night. Who agreed? The swallow agreed. And further, the swallow asked Happy Prince if he would take another ruby stone to give it to the young playwright. So playwright, the person who writes the play, just like he had it to the old lady. So swallow himself asked to the Happy Prince whether I need to go and give another stone to this playwright fellow. Okay, children. So grate is a fireplace. I've already explained you in this thing. Faint means weak. So children, here I end with the explanation of the story. In the second part, I'll continue again the explanation of the story. So go through the video. Any doubt, do ask me. Okay. So please go through the video, read your book. Any doubt, do call me up. Okay. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.